What's going on, everybody? How we doing? Get
All
everybody
right.
else. Sending out invites to everybody else. Okay. Yes, this is going to be a follow-up to what we did before. So does everyone have the application that we worked on before? The zip file? If not, it's in the team channel as the zip folder, webapp.zip. I'm going to be referencing this, and that's where I'm going to start working from this point. Okay?
Brandon, I have one quick question.
Yeah.
I kind of just deleted the ones that I was working with, trying to follow with you.
hmm
I kind of just took your zip folder and just put it in a new my desktop.
hmm
I'm getting that error again. Where it said no module name Flask, but with just your application. So is that something that's in my terminal that has something messed up, or
Probably.
okay? Don't want to
So
take any time out of anybody else. So
yeah, I'm going to walk through a couple of steps just to make sure that we're all getting set up on the right, on the right foot here,
okay,
and that everything's working.
gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna actually, yeah.
I've restarted this assignment 3 times now.
Hang on 1 second. You said you restarted the same assignment 3 times? If I start with no pip file, that's weird.
I
I'm
broke
just
it.
having trouble with a flash message.
Hmm?
Ryan can go. Mine's least important.
Okay.
Mine's not important either. I was just saying that I broke it, and then I broke my pip file, and I couldn't load it anymore, so I just deleted everything and just restarted doing it off of Alex's lecture, and it's way more clear, even though she kind of goes off on unnecessary tangents too. It's definitely, I would recommend watching. I think.
Oh, you muted. All right. So yeah, we're gonna get started here. I think
Time.
so. Crystal and Goggin, I'm pretty sure you guys are having the import errors, right? Where you're running the app and it's saying failed to find, failed to import module, and then, Flask or Flask SQL Alchemy. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen and we'll dive in. So this is the project right from where we left off. Nothing's been changed from where I zipped it and sent it to you guys, okay? Number 1, double check your pip file to make sure Flask, SQL Alchemy, and Python.env are all present and look more or less like this.
Yep, looks exactly like that.
Perfect. All right. Second thing you're going to do is you're going to bring up your terminal. Let me actually close out of this. I just wanted to make sure it was working. Exit. So you CD, right? You change directory into the app location. In my case, that's DS local web app.
Right, so I'm in the main direct. So I've got desktop, main directory, and then there's an app file inside the app directory.
Can you actually, real quick, show me that? Share your screen.
Sorry, hold on.
It's okay. I just want to make sure that I understand fully what you're looking at.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. Oh, sorry. There we go.
All right. Okay. So you are in desktop web app new. Okay. And this is looking pretty much exactly the same. Okay. Hang on. Open editors. I need web app new. So you have app with those things in it. That looks right. Env config run.py. Okay. So let's look at your, where's this happening? App equals create app. And it's happening in create app. Okay, so open up your init and let's take a look at that.
Okay.
All right, so you have from Flask import, okay. From Flask underscore SQL Alchemy import SQL Alchemy. Yep. Yep. That looks perfect. Okay. So in your terminal over here,
Okay.
I want you to pipenv shell. Okay, it's already activated. Pip list. We have all of the necessary things. Okay.
Yeah, on my pip list, it doesn't have those, so I just have to install it again.
Your environment may not be set up. Double check that you're in your pip shell by doing pipenv shell and
Yeah,
then
I'm
doing
in the
pip list.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm in the shell. Yeah.
If you're in the shell and it's not appearing, then yes, you need to do pipenv install and then the names of the packages.
Gotcha.
Okay. So yeah, in your case, Crystal, I want you to
Oh,
I want you to run do Python run.py, and let's see in action what happens.
sorry, it just froze. Were you talking to me? Do Python run up?
Yeah, Python run.py.
Okay.
Okay, you're having a different issue. Okay, I see what the problem is. It's this down here. You're missing a DLL file, it looks like, for SQLite 3. I'm not sure how or why.
Okay.
I think John, actually, I don't want to give you the wrong name. Hang on. Let me reference. Yeah, Jonathan Duke.
Mhm.
Looks like he ran into something very similar. Yes, he was missing a DLL file somehow, and he downloaded it from SQLite.org/download and put it into his Anaconda 3/DLLs folder.
Okay. I'll research that.
Yeah. Do you can you see it in the main DS12 channel where that thread is?
Oh no, I didn't know it was in the main DS12, but I'll go look at that.
Yeah, I just remember reading it when I was scrolling through checking for questions. So
Okay.
check that out. It looks like it's a similar issue.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Otherwise, you might have to activate the Conda base environment and then do your pip shell from there.
I started in Anaconda. I've been doing Anaconda for the last couple of weeks, and then it was like really fighting with Flask when I was following along with lecture. So today I'm in Git Bash. I had to fix my file path in Windows to get it to work. So I'm not really used to Git Bash, so I think that's why I'm running into all these problems. But
It probably is. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll need you could fix your issue by just activating your Conda base environment and then going into your pip shell. That would work, and then it should have access to everything that it needs to run.
okay,
Or you can do as Jonathan suggested, which is to download the DLL file and put it into the directory yourself.
okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully that fixes the issue. If not, we'll revisit that a little bit later. Okay, so back onto what we were working on. Goggin, real quick, are you still having issues with Flask? Can you share your screen and show us your environment?
Sure. I think I was able to get it. I think because since I deleted my previous file,
Mhm.
that's why I had to reinstall the packages, I believe.
Okay,
But I'm good now, though. On the terminal, it's reading up.
perfect. Yeah, I see it's running there. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. All right, so we'll go ahead
I have one
and
quick question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So do I have to install it to my desktop base environment, or am I good on the virtual environment with Shell?
okay, so you said
'Cause
your
I
desktop.
installed it in the pipenv and Shell, like in the virtual environment. I installed the packages.
That's where they should be installed.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to make sure that they install to your shell environment. And let me real quick just touch on what that even means. So right here, let me get out of that. That's a thing I'm working on. That's a Flask app that I'm currently working on. It's actually going to be my portfolio website. So here in the web app folder, you have your pip file and your pipfile.lock. You want to make sure that this pip file has these packages, okay? These are the things that are going to be installed in your pipenv shell, okay? And then to make sure that we have access to them, we just do pipenv shell in our terminal from that location, right? So we were in the root directory, and then we used pipim shell, and now we can see that we're in that environment. And to confirm that, you can do a pip list, and you should see everything. It should look very similar to this, right? So I see that I have everything I need, including Flask and Flask SQL Alchemy. Okay, so we spent about 10 minutes on that, so let's go ahead and get into some more stuff, right? From this point, when you run this, it's creating the database file, testdb.sqlite, okay? It's giving it one table, and that table currently is this user table, right? So let's talk about how can we interface with this such that we can populate this table with some users, right? Because currently there's nothing. There's nothing there, right? So that's the first thing that we're gonna do. We're gonna create a template HTML page, and we're going to assign an endpoint. The endpoint is going to allow us to visit this page, submit form data back to our route, which is going to then in turn populate our database with that information. Okay, so that's going to be the step-by-step process that we're going to follow. By the end of this, you should all be able to successfully add information to your database tables through this sort of user interface, right? So let's talk about the first thing that we're going to need to do. So right here in routes, we define these endpoints as well as the methods, and then this data, or rather this Python function that gets executed when this endpoint is hit, right? In this particular case, when we load in, the first thing that it does is it prints this to our console. This is the server console that only you have access to, okay? And then it returns this onto the page, okay? So anything that's in this return is what's being rendered to the user, okay? So in this case, we only have it's working. So we want to add some complexity. We want to show something a little bit more involved, right? And to demonstrate, I'll just go ahead and create a new route. Okay, we're going to call this create user. Okay, and this route's going to be very simple. And again, I'm just going to explicitly say that I'm accepting get and post methods on this route. Okay, I'm going to start my function, create user. Okay, what is this going to do? This is going to take form data. All right, so we're going to submit a request to this endpoint. Okay, when that request comes through, we want to grab the information that's being posted, right, with this function. How do we do that? Well, one of the simplest ways is to include an if statement. So if request.method equals the two equal signs, so this should evaluate to true or false, okay, post. What does this say? This returns true if the method that hits this endpoint is a post method, right? As opposed to get, right? Now, if, for instance, I didn't want anyone to actually be able to see anything returned from this, but actually only send information to it, in real life, I might actually take out that get altogether, okay? In which case I wouldn't need this. But for the sake of posterity, I'm showing you this because it's applicable in every situation, okay? So we'll say if request.method equals post, all right, we want to do something, right? What do we want to do? Well, we want to take that form data, right? Now, really cool thing about this is that request has a couple of things involved in it. But when you submit a form and through a typical HTML form with a form action, it comes parsed in form, okay? So request.form and then some key, right, will have some value. So it's key value stores, okay? So for instance, we have an input with the name username. Well, whatever gets put in there is going to be accessible to us on this Python side by request.form username. So I might say username equals request.form username. Email equals request.form and then email, right? I'm trying to keep it simple here. What else is on our model? Oh, we actually don't have email. We have city and occupation. So we're gonna keep it simple. We're gonna keep it in line with what we currently have. Call this city. Change that to city. Instead of username, it's gonna be name. I'm gonna keep that username, and you'll understand more about why here in just a second. And our other model is occupation, which is gonna be a string. All right, and actually these need sizes. Name shouldn't be more than 255. I use 255 as kind of a default placeholder for size. You can pretty much dictate however large you want these to be able to be. Save that. Okay, so city will be request.form key city, and occupation equals request.form occupation. Okay.
Hey, real quick, and those sizes, is that number of characters?
Yes, that's number of characters.
Okay.
It's not bytes, it's not bits, it's character length. All right. So now we have name, city, and occupation, which are the three fillable non-primary key values in this table. And we want these to be user inputted. All right. So we want to collect this information from a form that we haven't yet built. Right. But essentially, we're going to then update the information. Right. How we're going to do that? We need to reference our DB right here. Right. So we're going to say new user equals, and now we have to create that user class, right? So here's this user class when we need to give it name, city, and occupation, right? And now that we've defined these things, it's really easy to do that, right? So we're gonna say user, and then is it user or users? Nope, just user. Make sure you get their plurals right. That'll screw stuff up faster than anything, right? And then we'll say name equals name. Name equals name, comma, city equals city, and occupation equals occupation. It's going to look very similar to this, right? So we're creating a class instance of this model type, right? What does that mean? Well, we're
Doesn't it have to be username?
No, name is going to be user. Name is name from models.
Oh yeah.
I'm referencing this as the input, and this is this
Gotcha.
variable here.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah. So now I passed in the information that's required, right, to this. And this ID should auto increment. Primary key equals true. We'll double check that now because honestly, I don't remember the last time that I actually did that. So I don't remember. We're going to find out. Trial by fire. So now we have a new user. And here's the real kicker. Okay, in order to get that user into our table, we need to db.session.add, and I think if I recall correctly, let me just double check something real quick. Hang on. SQL Alchemy. Hang on one second. Trying to remember something. Hang on one second. Yeah, we're going to add user. Okay. Yep. It's just this simple. We're going to say db.session.add new user and then db.commit. Okay. That's it. That's the whole process here, right? Now we need to return something on this if, right? Or else Flask is going to get mad. It's going to say, well, you didn't return anything, right? So we're going to go ahead and return something new, something you guys haven't seen before. It's called make response. Okay. And all we're going to do is we're going to have it respond user, and here, and we're using an F string name. So I'm referencing the name that they input in their form here. successfully created. Okay, so if this works, it will return this response. Okay, that's all this is designed to do. Okay, so now let's talk about this form, right? Now we're going to get into some HTML. All right, we need to go to templates and we need to create a new file. We're going to call this my form. Well, it needs to be accessible, so we'll just call it index for now. Okay. Also, to make sure that we can get there, we need to change this original form here, rather this return here, to reference this index.html. And in order to do that, we need to do this render template, right? Same way that he did it in lecture. So now we're going to return render template, and then the name, the index.html. All right, cool. There we go. So now we have this information here. And yep, that's going to take us to index. So now let's go ahead and start modifying our index.html. Much the same way as was done in lecture, you typically start with some really basic HTML, right? You know, you can do, I think this has, yeah, autocomplete, which will give me a basic template setup for HTML. But essentially, if you have HTML and then a head and a body, is all we need. Okay? I'm not going to do templates here. You are more than welcome to do templates, but I'm not going to do them. Okay? Cool? All right, cool. I think most of you guys turned cam off, so I can't even see y'all.
Cool.
I have no idea. You guys could be sleeping. I have no idea what's going on. All right. So body, right? We're in our body, and we want to make this simple, right? We don't need anything super complicated here. Okay. So I'm going to print H1, big bold lettering. This is the submit, or rather the form to add a user. Okay. This is awesome. This is some really high level stuff here, guys. Okay. Nothing crazy going on yet. All right. Now we're going to create a form. Now this form needs to have an action. Okay. The action needs to hit that endpoint that we just created. Create user. Okay. That's important. If you don't do this, none of this works. Right? This has to exist. Create user. We need to have it send this data when it submits to the create user endpoint, which is going to be here. Okay. Which activates this, which in turn does this, which is what we want. Okay. So let me get some documentation over here so I know what I'm doing. Submit. There we go. All right. So we've got a form.
You got to close the form too, buddy.
Yeah, no. So the other method, this is being explicit, okay? It should be inferred, but I like to make sure that I'm being explicit, right? And so inside of this form, and yeah, you always want to make sure you close your tags. All right, now we're inside of this, okay? I'm going to create a couple of paragraph things here. So I want, this is going to be name. Yeah. And then we need input type. So now we're providing, this is going to be given, right? It's going to say name, like that. And now we're going to create one of those little text boxes where they can input their name. So input type is going to be text. Right, this is all handled by HTML for us. We don't have to worry about this. Here's the important one. No commas in HTML. Name. Name is how when this data gets parsed and fed into the request.form object, this is how it recognizes, this is where that key comes from. Okay, so what we put here is important. What we're referring to is the username, and I know that might be a little confusing, but I didn't want to have name equals name, right? So we're going to say username. Okay, that's referenced right here. So this variable will become the result of this input field right here. Okay, that's all we really need here. So we can actually just do this cool abbreviated syntax where we just put a / at the end to end that, and then we'll close up our p tag. Okay, and we're going to repeat this for all of our input fields, right? So we have city, I think it was, and occupation. Now we'll do city and then input type. Keeping it simple here, guys. This works for drop downs, multi-select, radios, all of that. Okay, you can put any type of input that you want and get the information out of it.
That
Okay.
daytime basically like a calendar.
Yeah, you can exactly. Yeah, as long as it's an inferable datetime format and that datetime can understand, which actually I'm working on with my personal project now, trying to get that to work. Right. This is just going to be city because we refer to it as city.
I want check boxes.
You can make some checkboxes then. I'm going to do text boxes for the sake of this demonstration, but you can do whatever you want.
No, that was an ode to my issue with Plotly Dash.
Oh, I remember you with your checkboxes. Yeah, I remember now. Occupation. So now we'll just do occupation. Input type equals text. Name equals occupation. Okay. And all right. So this is where we're at. Now all we need is a submit button. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do input type equals submit. Yep. And the value is going to be submit. That's it. That's the whole thing. So now we have a form that is displayed on this HTML page, index.html, and we should see all of this information when we load our app. Okay. When it sends this data to this endpoint, that should be picked up here on our route. And when the request method is post, it should assign these variables, create the user, add the user, commit the changes, and give us this make response in return, saying username successfully created, right? Bare bones basic. Let's hope to God it works because I have not done this prior to this presentation and I have no idea. So let's find out. We have index saved and I'm just going to double check routes for rendering template here. Yep. All right, cool. It's going to be a little bit weird. We won't be able to go back. We're not adding fancy things like redirects or anything like that yet. So we'll start here and then go here. Okay. So let's give it a shot. See if it works. First thing to do is to run our Python file. We're going to Python run.py. Oh, we got an error. Got an unexpected. Okay. Did I? Yep. Always make sure to check your spelling. Method is not a thing. Methods is. Stuff will get you, man, every time. All right, cool. So it didn't complain. It didn't give us any errors right from the offset, which is good. So you can't see this, but on my other screen, I'm going to localhost, and let me pull it up. Okay, somebody went to it. There we go. Oh boy. Okay, looking a little cray-cray over here, but let's go have a look at our unstyled version of this whole thing. I'm going to share on my other screen now. All right, and so now, can you guys see this? My
Beautiful.
so this is a form to add a user. We have, I don't know what the heck is going on here. This looks awful, but I'm so used to using Bootstrap. So now we can add a name. All right, so let's add John Jacob. And let's see, city is going to be New York. And occupation, Gigolo. There we go. All right, submit that. Name request is not defined. If request.method equals, oh, it might be requests. No, have I even instantiated request? Did I import it? I sure did not. Okay, SQL object attribute, or rather, SQL Alchemy object has no attribute commit. Because session So that should be session.commit, possibly. Name make response is not defined because I haven't imported it. See, so we're just hitting random errors at this point, and I'm just working through them in order. So what does it tell me? It said make response is not defined. Well, why isn't it defined? So I went and looked. I didn't import it. So I need to import make response.
Can you share your screen, Brandon?
Are you not seeing? Are you seeing the
Only.
web page?
Yeah.
We see your browser.
Okay, hang on. So let me go back over here and show you the changes that I'm making. All right, so what did I do? I didn't have make response. I didn't have request. So I had to put those in, and I had to change db.commit to be db.session.commit. I forgot to add that, right? So a couple of little small errors, right, that I got, but notice that each time I changed something, I got a new error, and I was able to iterate until we got to this point where I suspect it should work. Let's try it out. All right, so we're gonna run this again. Oop, nope, I just need to refresh my browser page. And it's still saying make, oh, because I didn't save. Always make sure you save. And rerun. Ho, user John Jacobs successfully created. So let me show you this awesome thing now. Right, we've got our make response. User John Jacobs successfully created. Out freaking standing. But how do we know that we actually did anything? In fact, I suspect that we made him like 4 times in our database. Let's take a look. So let's go back over here. Let's take a look at our database. So I'm going to turn this off now. Cool. We're going to cd into app, and then I'm going to open up that Python REPL. And now I'm going to I want to look at this database. I want to see what's in there. I want to make sure that we actually have data on that database now, right? Did it actually commit anything, or was it just pulling our leg? So let's take a look. So I'm going to say import SQLite 3 as SQL, and I'll say con equals SQL.connect. And you guys may or may not remember we called that test db.sqlite. Right. And then C equals con.cursor. Cool. Now we're going to execute a query. Select star from users. Is that the, gotta go. What did I call it? Yeah, table name is users. So that's the table it should be under. Okay. And we want to fetch all. Look at this. So yeah, as it turns out, we did add him 3 times, right? Because we ran the code 3 times in iteration, and we didn't have any checks to make sure that it didn't already exist. So it just keeps adding, right? Every time it runs, it's just going to do it again and add that line. So that would be the next thing, right? That's a great segue into the next point, is how do you prevent duplicate data from being entered? Right? Now we got to add some checks. We got to say, okay, well, we don't want John Jacob to make 3 accounts, right? And be listed 3 times. That's a great way for a spider or something, some automatic program to come in here and just start flooding our database with useless information, right? Because there's no checks on what data can be entered. So we want to make sure that John Jacob can only be entered 1 time, right? You can have multiple gigalos, but I think there should only be 1 John Jacob. Okay, so let's talk about how we're going to fix that. So looking at this and thinking from a Python perspective in our routes, does anyone want to take a stab at how could we prevent duplicate information from being entered into this database? Anybody?
You can just create an if statement that checks if that name in that database already exists or not.
Yeah, exactly. We could create an if statement that procs true if a query, right, returns some value. How would we do that? So let's talk about that in in reality here. So we could say user exists. I'm going to create a new variable, okay, and I'm going to assign it equal to. That's going to be user.query. Now remember, user's referencing that database model, okay? And now I want to query it, okay? Query is the same thing as select all, right? We're running a select statement on our database, and we're going to filter by Okay. Name. That's going to be, yeah, name. Okay. And we want name. This is going to be name equals. Yeah, so it's going to be the name here. So name equals, it's got to be John Jacob, right? Something like that. So now it's going to look into the user database or the user table, and it's going to filter the results where name equals John Jacob, right? Now, there's an even cooler way that we could do this. That's the standard way. We could say name equals name. Why would we do this? Anyone know?
Because there might be someone else that comes along with the
With a
same
different
thing.
name, right? So John Jacob's not the only username that could be entered twice, right? So we want to basically look and compare this variable to this column in this data frame, right? Grab the first response, if any, right? So if this exists, if this query returns anything, we'll get the only first result, which is the only one that matters, because if user exists. So now we're saying if that variable contains any information at all, right? Which means that basically this returns something. If it returns something, return make response.
User exists.
You got it. User name already.
Hey, let me ask you a crazy question.
Yeah.
Is it case sensitive?
So yeah, it is. Unless we specify otherwise, it is case sensitive. And one of the ways that you might fix that, if you don't want people to have, uppercase Brandon versus lowercase Brandon versus capital BR lowercase, you can have all sort of iterations of the same name a multitude of times. Realistically, by the way, we wouldn't filter by name. I'm just using that as an example, right? Because you could have two Johns, you could have two Jacobs. But
Username would.
a good example, a better example of something you would filter by is maybe email address, where you only want one unique email address per account, right? But yeah, in that situation, what you might do is change this to name.lower, right? Remember, this is Python. So that takes a string and converts it into lowercase. And now no matter what they enter, it's still going to be filtered this way, right? That makes sense?
You're gonna want to do that anyway, or else you'll get people they'll try to scam people.
You'd be surprised when you open stuff up to the public, what they try to put in your databases.
Sorry. Brandon, can you open for a second for me index HTML file? I just missed something there.
Yeah, check it out.
A second.
Can't you put all that form action into a table?
Mm.
Probably too in HTML.
Yeah, there's a whole number of
Make it
ways.
prettier.
Yeah, to make it prettier. But at the end of the day, our job is not to make it prettier.
Yeah.
Our job is not to learn HTML. I'm not going to teach you HTML. I'm not going to teach you Bootstrap. That's on you. If you want to learn it, go learn it. I highly suggest it. It's really awesome.
I'm sorry. This is after input type. It's equals submit or it's dash submit. I just cannot see it.
It's okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. My screen is super big.
No, it's not your
That's
fault.
an equal sign. So
No,
it'd be
next, the lower. Oh my God! Just next.
right here,
Yes, that one. Yes.
Huh?
equal
They're
signs on
both
both.
equal.
Oh my God! I'm
Maybe
sorry,
zoom
guys.
in a little bit.
It's okay. I think. Oh, here we go. Can you see that?
Yes,
Might be a little
so,
too
I'm really
much.
sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I forgot I could make it bigger. My bad, y'all. Make you don't stare at
I
my
have so
tiny,
many jokes.
tiny text.
I
Yeah,
have so many jokes.
yeah, I
about
know, right? I know.
I'm gonna
I
wash my
just opened that door wide open to jokes. So
it. And you continue. I'm gonna go wash my hands.
all right. So, what did we do? Let's break it down, okay? Because this looks like a lot of code, and now things are starting to look a little cray, right? We got a lot going on here. But let's break it down. We created an endpoint. We said if this endpoint gets used by either a get or post method, then this code will be executed. Right? We're going to execute this function. What is in this function? Well, we only really care about post methods, right? We don't return anything for anything else. So if you tried to get on this, it wouldn't return anything. But when we send a post request to this method, we capture some information from the parsed form. And specifically, it's looking for this tag, okay? This is very important. Whenever the parser sees this tag in this form action, it automatically creates a Python object for us because it's super, super nice like that, right? So now we can just go ahead and access form with the key username, and form with the key city, and form with the key occupation, which is coming straight from the name field of the input types, right? That are inside your form tag. Cool. So now we have some Python variables that we can work with by creating a new user, right? So referencing this user model, we're just going to ignore the ID. Why? Because it's a primary key and it's going to auto increment by 1, right? We don't want to mess with the system, as it were, that our database has for handling that. So we only want to input values for user inputable fields like name, city, and occupation. Okay, so we just reference that in our user. Name equals name, city equals city, and occupation equals occupation. Where's that coming from? Name is the first name is the column name. The second name is this variable name, right? So we're matching 1-to-1 the column from models to the variable that we defined from the user input data that came from our form, 1-to-1, right? And we just feed that information right in here to this user class. And then we let a SQL Alchemy handles the rest for us. We don't have to do anything else with that, right? We have all we need. But we're going to go ahead and check first to make sure that this user doesn't already exist, right? We choose something to filter by. In this case, I arbitrarily chose name. Like I said, you wouldn't normally do that. You would probably filter by something that should be unique to each person, right? But if this returns a value at all, then this statement here will proc true. And when I say proc, by the way, I'm sorry if I'm using the shorthand terminology, it's confusing. I mean processes, right? So this will process to true or evaluate to true. And when it does, instead of getting this nice user successfully created, right, it's going to stop what we're doing and tell us that that name already exists, right? So this user will not be added again to the database. It will stop here, right? If this does not process as true, then we will add the new user, commit those changes, and then again have a return, make response, right? It's going to give us a display on our browser, letting us know, hey, that user was successfully created, and that's it. That's all it does. It stops there, right? Really super, super basic. But at this point, we're able to add new users, right?
Yeah. Brandon, quick question. This session that's a built-in function. What does that do specifically?
That accesses the connection that SQL Alchemy has made to your database. So that follows the whole train. And if you want me to walk down the list of steps that SQL Alchemy is using, or how we get to session?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. From the .env, we define a DB address, right? So it uses this relative file location in a init. When we access this, we create a SQL Alchemy class, and then we init app, and db.createAll is looking for this particular environment variable, okay? Which when we go to config, we just translate that into SQL Alchemy database URI. If this variable exists when SQL Alchemy is instantiated, it will automatically set up a connection, okay, to that particular database file. If it doesn't exist, it will create it, okay? At that point, you now have an open connection. For instance, when I run this app, you wouldn't be able to delete the database file because it's currently in use, right? On Windows, you wouldn't be able to delete it. You would have to shut down your app first because you have an open connection, okay? Now that SQL Alchemy can see this database file, it has those internal methods, right? Session and all that stuff. There's quite a few others that typically we don't worry about. We don't use them, right? But SQL Alchemy goes deep, man. That's a whole semester by itself, seriously, okay? But for our purposes, that's where the session comes in at. once that connection's been made from SQL Alchemy to your database, we now have access to that particular session. Okay, and that session is referring to the connection that's been made. Think of it as your this command is the cursor, right? The whole thing. This whole command is the cursor. All right. So accessing that bridge, that connection, which is a session. All right, cool. That was a good question. Anybody else have any questions? Is everyone caught up to where I am? Does your code look like this?
Yeah, I have a question. If it runs through that if statement, will it try adding the new user after it runs through that if statement, or will it completely stop once it hits that make response?
So when you hit a return on an if, right?
Yeah,
It
there's a
stops the
return,
function.
Yeah.
Everything stops there. Yeah.
Did
It's
you just write make response and it will do the same thing, or it has to return?
it has to return.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If it doesn't return, it'll process make response, and then it'll keep going, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
add
yeah.
and then commit. Right? It won't have the
Yeah,
desired effect of stopping us.
I'm having an error and I cannot find where because I'm trying to have everything what you do. But
Okay, no, it's okay. What's the error?
it's when I'm creating the user. Let me tell you what is the error. Yeah, something with the user. I don't know. It's not like explaining the error really.
Okay, so you're getting one of those cryptic messages.
500 something.
Internal, yeah. Okay, so 500 is the HTTP protocol response for internal server error. Okay,
Yeah, something is.
so it's telling you that it's trying to do something that you, or rather, you told it to do something that it cannot do. So we need to look at the code and see where the mistake is.
I'm just really looking. Maybe it's something like definitely I missed something or some syntax mistake. It's always something like that.
That's okay. So let's go ahead and, if you would please, share your screen and we can take a look, put eyes on, see if we can find where that error is. Oh, and I just saw chat.
Sorry. Okay, let me show you an error. Error looks like this.
Okay, so let's take a look here. We've got, it tried to make a response. The view function did not return a valid response. The function either returned none or ended without a return statement. So that's a pretty common error that happens when it hits the end of a function without encountering return. So let's look at
Did
your
that return?
let's see here. It doesn't look like there's anywhere where it can go without hitting a return. So I'm a little confused. Go back, open up your error message again. Let me see if I can track down the path where it came from. Okay, exception on create user get. WSGI. App response, okay. Following. Okay. Okay, get create user HTTP. Let me check my server logs real quick. So I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to be doing that. Okay. Yeah, get create user. Detect a change. Post to create user 200. Okay. Interesting. Not 100% sure why it's trying to get. Debug mode. Okay, try running it one more time.
Sure. It's running like it gives the main page, but it's I cannot create the user page. You know.
Yeah. So back up. Yeah. Just go to your.
It was working. Now that's not.
Just put the backslash there after 5,000. The forward slash, I should say, rather. Yeah. Huh. Go open up your terminal. If there's an error, we should see it now. Okay, there is an error. Now it's saying it can't find index. Okay, so we got a deeper problem. Let's look at your VS Code again. That should be an index.
Didn't I just import something?
Everything's right. Go to your models. That's right. Go to your run.py.
Oh my God, I'm
Run.py is outside, down
Okay.
at the very bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, everything's right. I'm wondering if it's not an issue. So open up your terminal. I'm thinking this might be one of those rare instances where it just gets borked, and I'm confused about these characters, and I can't help but feel like they might have something to do with why this isn't working. So I want you to exit your pipium shell.
Oops.
Okay. Now go back into your pipium shell. And do Python run.py. All right. Head on back to your browser and try to load that page. Okay. We're getting template not found.
The
So
template folder is spelled. It has to be the same spelling.
yeah, it's got to be template.
Okay, I think your template folder in your VS Code is spelled wrong, maybe.
Templates. Yeah, that's so this is a good example. It's a minor issue, right? But that does need to be exactly templates.
Okay, how should I pronounce? How should I spell it? Just templates?
ATE, I think.
Like this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But that would be why it's not finding that template, because it's looking for this folder, but it's not seeing it.
Oh my God.
Okay, so make sure your index is still in there. So always like to be sure. Yep, we got index in there in the
Thank
templates
you,
folder.
guys.
So we're ready to go. So let's pull this up, and yeah, now we can see that we're getting a bunch of 200s. Let me draw on this real quick. Now we can see we're getting our 200s, right? This is what we expect. This is what we wanted to see. Okay, so now you can go back. Yeah, Flask run should execute. Yeah, you're good. On your Google Chrome. Yeah, reload that. Let's see what happens. There we go. Now it's working. Perfect. Yeah. So now let's go ahead. Actually, while you've got this up, you're basically doing the screen share for me. So let's put in a new name, right? Let's fill these fields out and see what happens. So go ahead and give us a fake name and city and occupation. Mary Poppins. I like it. I like it. Awesome. All right. You're much more creative than me. When I come up with John Jacob, yeah.
No, I'm not creative with somebody's name.
All right. And okay, Baltimore, perfect. And a fake occupation. Something a little bit more safer for work than Gigolo, please.
Why not nanny? It's already there.
Yeah, nanny's right there. Yeah, it's right there for you. Right, go ahead and submit, and we should see that this worked. Oh, nope, it's telling us Mary Poppins already exists. So it looks like our code backfired on us. It looks like what we wanted it to do was to check that that it didn't already exist, but it returned that a name that we know is not in the database, returned that it already exists. So let's see. Filter by name goes first. If user exists. Maybe I need to actually give that. Hang on. Let me check on this real quick. Stand by. I have to consult my SME Google about this error. Give me 1 second.
If you run yours, Brandon, does it do the same error?
Oh yeah, it does the same thing on mine.
What about you, Jacob? Does it gives you same error?
That's not what I'm looking for. Give me 1 sec, y'all. I want. There we go. And we're going to jump up to collecting this one right here. Okay. I think I see the issue. Oh, come on, man. I was so close. Okay, I see the issue here. The issue is that we create a new user, which is a user class, and then it queried the user, which returns true because we just instantiated it. So yeah, what do we need to do here? We need to move these things around a little bit. So let me show you my screen so we can get on the right track here. It's a really minor thing, but it's going to screw stuff up, right? So we need to have this set so that if our request method is post, we don't want to first create the user. We want to do that last, okay? So we're going to cut that out altogether, okay, for now. Now we're going to say, since we have this user exists equals user query, and I'm going to show you a slightly different syntax. I think it's easier, okay? It's going to be filter, okay, where user dot, it's going to be name equals name. So referencing column and then this right here, right, the variable. And then we're going to do first. It's very simple, or very much similar, but a little bit more explicit. And I think this is better syntax, personally. So now if user exists, do this. So if this has any data, it's going to go ahead and run this response. Or else, right, now we want to add the new user. Okay? So this is the order. This is the new order of things. We're just moving this line from here to here. All right?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we want to first we have to do things in chronological order because it's checking this and finding that value because we just put it there, right? So now we're going to check for the user first, and then if it doesn't return true, then we'll add the new user to the database. Change this around, and let me go ahead and save all this. Make sure that saves. Little blue dots are gone. Cool.
What did you change the filter to? Was it originally filter by?
Yeah, it was originally filter by and then name equals name, right? So now I'm just, because it's user.query, but I'm going to change that. Now it's user.query. So we're still querying the user table, but now we're just being explicit about what we're checking.
Oh, because I basically did what you did before and mine works fine.
Yeah.
But I'm not using a make response. I was confused why you changed that.
No, it's simpler syntax in my opinion.
Okay.
That's all. But if you got it working, that's fine. Again, 1,000 ways to do this. Whichever way is easiest for you, right? Or whatever way works, because that's the way you need to do it. All right, so we've made this change. So let's confirm it. I'm going to go ahead, exit from here, and I want to go ahead and I'll get a CD up to my parent directory, and now I'm going to do Python run.py. Make sure it loads our, yeah. So we've got everything loaded, no errors. and I go to my base. Let me share my screen here. All right, you guys can see my webpage here. Cool. So let's add in a new one, right? We want Mary. I think it's Mary. Yeah, Mary Poppins, and she lives all up in Baltimore, and she's a nanny. Okay. Now we should get successfully created. Yay. Right. Air horn, air horn. Let's go back. And we're going to try to add her again. Okay. So now we're going to do the exact same thing. Now we should see that it doesn't work. Right. Now it should already exists. See, so now it's catching this and saying, wait a minute, stop. That name's already in this database. I'm going to stop you right there. We don't want duplicates. Right. Cool. Working as intended. Right. How are we feeling about this?
When you're creating the connection, you're not adding the new file into the editor, you're just keeping it in Python? I mean, in a terminal?
Say that one more time.
When you created the connection with the SQLite right now in a terminal, you're not adding any file into the editor, like to have this connection there?
Mm-mm. No, are you talking about this part up here where I did all this? Is that what you're talking about?
I don't see what you're showing. I mean, it was in your terminal. You just create the connection cursor like with the SQLite 3.
Yeah, are you talking about this part right here?
Yes. Do we need to create the?
No, you don't have to do this. This was just me. All I did was I did that select star from users so that way I could see what was in this table, right? That's all I was doing. All I was doing was getting information out of the database. I wasn't putting anything in, okay? And then once I saw that I had 3 duplicates, I went ahead and exited from my Python REPL. So no, I did not modify the contents of this database whatsoever when I did this, okay? The only time that we did is when we, and let me show you real quick down here, right? When we accessed the database, the only time we've ever actually modified anything on our database was from our application, right? Through our web browser. Over here on, you know, in the localhost, right? So we filled out our form, we hit submit, and then it updated our database using the code we wrote. Everybody tracking that so far? How we feeling?
Brandon, could you show me the code where you're putting the information into the database?
Right here. These 3 lines.
All right, that's got it.
Mm-hmm. You want to walk through what it does?
We created the table in another, in the other file, right? In it.
Yeah, right here. In your init, when you're creating the app for the very first time, it's going ahead and checking to see if it needs to create the tables.
There's an empty table right there when it says create all, and it just
yeah, it creates the table. Now, if the table already exists, it does nothing. Okay, so it will not overwrite already existing table. And we can confirm that by coming down here. We can go ahead and close this down. We should have Mary Poppins in 1 time, but 3 instances of John Jacob, right? So if I cd into my app file, so I'm in the same directory as my test database, I can go ahead and just load up my Python again. And SQL con equals sql.connect, right? testdb.sqlite, and then c equals con.cursor. So I've done this so many times. I've gotten really fast at typing all that out. Well, what have I done? I've just created a connection and a cursor to the test DB, right? And now I want to select star from users. So I'm going to c.execute, select all from users. And I want to fetch all of the responses. Okay, so now we can see we still have 3 instances of John Jacob Gigolo, right, from New York, and 1 instance of Mary Poppins, the nanny from Baltimore. Okay, so even though I shut down the server and reopened it, it did not overwrite the information. The information persisted. Okay, pretty cool, right? So now we know how to do that particular part. Now there is an option that you can add for yourself, right? An endpoint that you can access that will automatically go through and drop all your tables. So again, with great power comes great responsibility, right? You can totally screw the pooch, so to speak, on this and kind of jack yourself and then force yourself to have to reset. But assuming that you do things smartly and not just randomly, you should be good. All right, so we confirmed that that information was entered into the database successfully that we wanted to do. So we've talked about post, and I'm assuming at this point that you guys are feeling pretty confident with doing post requests, right? So let's look at the inverse of that. What if we have data in our database, but now we want to display it, right? So we're going the other way, okay? And in this case, again, I'm going to use just some real basic HTML tags, right? Nothing fancy here, no styling. And Siri just popped on, thinks I want some monster eggs, right? Cool, Siri, thank you. So yeah, now we want to get data out and display it for our users, okay? So we're gonna have another endpoint, and let me just kind of walk through what we're gonna do again, same way as I did before. Okay, now we're going to add a new route. This route's going to be called display users. And when accessed, it should output all of the users from our database onto the page in some semi-readable format, right? Before I do that, I want to stop and make sure everyone is caught up. Does anyone need to see any code to get caught up to where we are?
I have a weird error.
Okay, what you got?
So it makes the table. My app is running until I add, and then I can show you. Hold on.
Yeah, share your screen. Let me stop my screen share.
I just
And-
messed this up. Hold on,
Yeah.
just a second. All right. Where's my browser? Okay, I think it's running right now. Hold on. Here we go. So if I add someone,
Your girl at your girl's house, Wilden. Awesome.
oh no, that's not what it did before. That is
Yeah,
not
no,
what it did
it's
before.
shut down. It looks
It
like.
did this. It did this before.
Okay. So bad request key error. Very interesting. You got a 400. Haven't seen one of those in a while. All right. So request.form occupation.
Getting all the cool errors today.
Yeah, scroll down a little bit on that work, sir. All right. 400 bad requests, browser proxy center request that this server could not understand. Key error was occupation.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
So go to your VS Code.
Okay.
Go to your HTML.
Okay.
And so again, always make sure to check your casing.
Oh,
entered-
is it because it's uppercase? Oh my gosh.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
it's case
is.
sensitive.
Oh my
It
goodness.
is very much case sensitive. That has to be a lowercase o.
Okay.
Now that can be an uppercase o. That doesn't matter. That's
Oh,
just
it
the
can.
text.
It can.
Yeah, that's
okay.
the text that's displayed.
Okay. All right. And so username and city are fine.
Yeah, so that's lowercase. That's
All right.
lowercase, and that was uppercase. That was the error. So
Okay.
now when you rerun this, restart the app, try to do it again, and it should work. And
Okay.
we'll just stay on screen share, make sure everything's working as intended. Jacob, you mean what should be installed? I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Can you eliminate?
The question above.
Okay. Oh, from C. Okay. What's the pip list here? Anyone? Yeah, subject matter expert. Do you need the pip list? C? Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, you're missing a little bit. In fact, so for anyone who may have joined late, let me go ahead and zip this, what we've got so far, and I'm going to post it all up in the Slack channel. So that way you guys can have a working example of what we got here. So let me do that real quick. Okay. Bear with me just a moment.
Why do you
Oh.
not teach this during the day? Just
What's that?
saying. You should be the one teaching this during the day. I'm just saying.
I could teach this. And that's not tooting my own horn. That's just facts. But that being said, I am not a trusted industry expert. So they are not going to let me teach it. That's just how it is. It's been so long since I've done Windows. I'm trying to do Linux commands in Windows. It's not working. All right, here we go. Want to package all this up. Webapp.zip. Yeah, looks good. All right, let me drop that all up off in the Slack channel.
Am I still sharing? I can stop sharing. Sorry.
Yeah, would you please? I appreciate it. And so how are we feeling so far? Has this made life a little bit easier for some of you guys? I sure hope it has.
I just cannot finish this night without errors. It's just ridiculous.
We're gonna tackle every error you can get. Okay.
You can,
It's
this is
gonna
when I'm
happen.
creating the class user and table name users. And now when I try to call it with the Python, it says not such table users. When I'm connecting to the SQLite 3 and trying to like select all from the test from users, it says no such table users.
All right.
What Slack channel did you drop that in?
That's an after hours channel.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we have that working template zipped right there for you. See, if you want to just go ahead and get a fast start on where we're at, you can just unpack that and start working out of there. It should have everything, including my environment file and all that. So it should be ready to go as soon as you load it up. Okay. And again, if need be, I can walk through what all's there. Okay, but it's pretty basic stuff. We've got two endpoints. One is the index, where we have our index.html that currently has a form on it, and the create user route that has basically, it accepts information from that form, right? And then does something with it. So it either adds it to the database or lets us know that it already exists. Excellent. This is also why you won't be able to access it by typing it into the URL bar. One of you might have tried doing that, right? Where you go to your local host, but then you do / create user. It won't work, right? Because you're not giving it any information. It only accepts input from the form. It's not engineered to be able to do anything else, right? So if you just go to it, it won't work. So you have to access it through the form. Okay, but so far so good. Now we want to do the reverse of that, right? We want to create a an interaction where we take information from the database and display it onto a different HTML page, right? So now what we're going to do, just double check. Actually, real quick, Yulia, you said you had an error with where we're at now. Let's go ahead and tackle that first.
It says to be fast. It's just, again, probably something. I'm just already confused where I have to look, you know. Can you see my screen?
Okay, no such table users. Yeah, so select star from all users, or select all from users. So let's take a look at your models. Should be, yeah, users. It's just table name. Class name is user. Tricky. Go to your init.py. Let's take a look there. DB, yeah, init, and then create all. Okay, so go back to your Python REPL here that you've got open. Let's go ahead and I want you to run the command c.execute.
See. Oh, right. You can understand what you're saying. Okay. See that execute.
Yeah, and then you're going to use the big double quotes. Select name. That's going to be lowercase. From. And lowercase SQL underscore, or nope, I'm sorry, SQLITE. Yep, underscore master. Where type equals, and then in small quotes, table, lowercase. And and close that up. Semicolon. You need a semicolon at the end of that.
Semicolon or
Yeah,
Oh.
before the end quote there. So you can do small quote, semicolon, and then big quote, and then close that up. And now do fetch all, dot fetch all, with 2 parentheses. All right, run that. Okay, your database is not creating the tables. So there is an issue with
I probably missed one of the steps before that.
That's okay. Let's take a look here. Minimize that for a second. Let me go back to the first place. Let me go to the .n file. Okay, SQLite testdb.sqlite. Okay, and that's under db underscore address. Okay, cool. Go to your config.py directly underneath it. Okay. SQL Alchemy database URI. Yep. SQL Alchemy track modifications. Okay, so that's set up correctly. Go back to your init. I wonder why it's not creating your tables. Scroll up some more. Okay. Go to your routes.py.
You just drop the whole all your like folder with all of this. Maybe I just not gonna hold you for so long, and I just gonna check it later with your folder. I just will not be able to follow right now.
Huh. Yeah, I'm a little confused because that should be working. Why it's not? Hang on. It's got to be something small that we're missing here.
Yeah.
They just double check what I've got. Yeah.
Be running it with Python.run or Python run.py.
Or Flask run.
I'm just
No,
asking.
right
I just
now-
downloaded yours, Brandon.
Yeah, it's Python run.py. That's how I'm running it.
Okay.
I'm just double checking some stuff. From app import db. Yeah. Yeah, try. Very strange.
It's saying main.models, no module name main.models.
No, it was before.
Oh.
It's, oh no,
No,
that's right now.
So main.models,
Where's that?
Dot models. That's the issue.
that's your issue.
Yeah, it's not dot models.
Mhm.
It's from in your routes.py. Oh no, it is dot models.
Oh,
Why isn't? Hang on. So maybe it's a location issue, because it is dot models in routes. From dot models, no module named main dot models. Main is not a package.
mhm. It's from the second web.
Interesting. Why is that happening? Go to your config.
Oh,
Wait, from dot models?
okay,
You need to
wait.
save that for starters. Your config.py is not saved. Make sure to save that.
Yeah, but that didn't change anything.
No, it's
Yeah, I got it.
just one of those things. Go to back to routes.py. It's trying to load dot models
Wow.
as the main. So go back to init real quick. All right. Flask app instance relative config. Yep. DB app with app.context return app. Go to your run.py. From app import create app equals create app.run. Okay. What was the command that you ran that gave you this error in your VS Code terminal?
I was running the roads.
Yeah, no, just scroll up there. Let me see. Where's the code that you executed? In the terminal. The one you typed in the terminal.
Thank you, baby. Oh. This one?
No, not that one. Your VS Code terminal.
Okay.
Just scroll up on it. There you
Yeah,
go.
just
That's
scroll
what
up
it's
in
saying.
there. Keep going.
Oh. Okay.
Keep going. Keep going. Okay, hang on. Stop right there. What in the world? So, okay. Users virtual ims app dot routes.py. Syntax error, invalid syntax. I have such a hard time understanding the VS Code terminal. It's not even funny. All right. Go to, okay, close, just, yeah, close. Open up your regular command prompt.
Mhm.
I want you to type exit. Come out of there. Okay. Now do Python run.py. That should be
Nope.
run.
Oh.
Okay. Outstanding. Go to your, go to your URL window. Browser? Yeah, there we go. My brain just shuts off. Take out the create user and just leave the backslash. We want to go to the index page. Add a user real quick.
Another user.
Yeah, let's try to go ahead and knock this out real quick so that we leave ourselves some time to do the git.
I knew a girl named Dolly Glassman in San Juan.
Whatever,
Is
like.
she an officer?
No, she wasn't.
Oh man, that would have been the trifecta.
Yeah.
All right, hit submit. Let's run that. Cool. Officer successfully created. Outstanding. Open up your terminal, and now you're going to Control C.
Yeah.
And CD into your app folder.
To the, okay.
There you go. That should be where your thing is. So type in dir. And you can see that that's where your TestDB SQLite is. All right, so now you're going to go into Python REPL.
Oh, it was supposed to be out of this folder. That's why it's not running, yeah?
No, that's where it's supposed to be.
Okay, to the REPL?
Yeah, Python REPL. There, just type in Python. That brings you into the REPL. All right, you're going to do import SQLite 3 as SQL. Con equals SQL.connect. All right, and you're gonna in quotes, yep, testdb.sqlite. Two eyes there. Check your eyes.
Literally.
And yep, run it. Now C equals con.cursor. Cool. And now you're just going to type in c.execute, select star from users.
Nope,
Check a
space.
space. Yeah. Semicolon. Yep, there you go. Wrap it all up. Dot fetch all.
I'm always forgetting this fetch all.
Check your spelling. Yeah. CHALL. There you go.
Yep.
There you go.
I have a weird people there.
No, that's but it's been working this whole time. It looks like it was just a location problem. I think maybe that you forgot to CD into your app folder.
No, but I think in your folder, the test DB, it's like right here, like out of it.
But you have one in both locations, which is strange. It should be in the app folder. That's where it's supposed to be. But it looks like you have a test DB here. There, let me show you why you're hitting this error. Minimize that for a second. This is the reason why. You have one here and one here. This one has nothing in it. I don't know where it came from. You can delete that. Okay, that's useless to us. This is the one that we're referencing. This is the one that has your inputs. Okay. So now we have this one here. That's the one we want, and that's the one that we're accessing. Okay. Cool deal. Yeah. Do you mind unsharing your screen now?
Can I take 2 seconds?
What's that?
Or maybe more? I just downloaded your zip, and it's running into a problem.
Yeah. What's the problem?
No module named Flask. So
Yeah, you need to set up the pipenv.
Just pipenv shell.
No, you need to pipenv install.
Oh, I have to install it. Okay.
Yeah, it should have the pip file and the pipfile.lock. You'll just need to do the pipenv install.
So pipenv install everything in the packages and the pip
No,
file.
it should do it automatically. It should see the pip file and then go ahead and start installing all that stuff.
Just pipenv install.
And then once you run that and it runs successfully, pipenv shell to go into the shell, and then Python run.py, and it should work.
Okay.
Okay.
Continue.
Yeah, no problem. No, that's pretty common issue, right? It might not seem, or rather, it might not be intuitive that you need to actually create the pip environment, right? When you download the package like that, like when it's already pre-assembled, but you need to actually create the pipenv first, and then shell into it to run your application. Okay.
So the pip file has everything you need to download, and whenever time you just try to exit out, you can just always do install pipenv install, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Gotcha.
If you make it, you can make a change to the pip file yourself, and then just pipenv install, and it'll gather up everything from the pip file and attempt to install those packages.
Like a requirements.txt file.
Pretty much, yeah. pipenv's version of requirements. It actually can look for requirements as well. I think that's automatically implemented. Sorry, I'm checking something else real quick. Oh, what do you got going on here? Python equals 3-7 equals. Okay. If you're getting an error that says no version found matching 3-7, okay, and you see this in your pip file, I'm not going to call out who this is, but I just want to showcase something real quick. And you have this in your pip file, okay, and the error is saying that it cannot find a version that matches, and then it has 3-7. What do you think you should do?
Check your version.
Change the dash to a dot.
Delete it. Remove it. Highlight it and hit the backspace button. Okay? For real, this is not a package. 3-7 is not a thing that exists. Okay? More than likely what happened is you accidentally typed in something like this by accident. (3-7). So if you accidentally type in this, right? That's going to cause an issue, right? It's going to try to do two things. It's going to try to install a Python version all and a 3-7 version all, okay? It's going to do something like that in your pip file, okay? That's not what you want, okay? And the solution is highlight, delete. Those are not valid entries, right? Those are not Python packages. You're never going to get that to run, okay? Pay attention to your error messages, okay? If it doesn't look right, it's probably not supposed to be there. Get rid of it. Pretty simple, okay?
After it's deleted, I've seen we run the Python lock file or the pip file.
Yeah, and you can delete pretty much everything from that. You might need to clear cache because even if you remove it from the pip file, it might still run into errors because it's still trying to install it. So you may need to remove that information. Copied, pipenv constructed, created users, already exists message as well, yet no such table users. Did you go into the app folder? So you have two directories. You have my app, or I think it's web app, and then inside of web app should be app, looking something like that. You need to change directory from web app into app in order to access the table. Did that work?
Yeah, I'm in web app when I run it.
Yeah, you should be in web app dash app. So your whole thing should look like home / some directory / web app / app. It should look like that. Okay, so make sure you're in app. Otherwise, when you try to open up, or rather make the connection, it's making a connection to an empty database. Remember, it'll create the database if it doesn't yet exist.
Which is probably how those test databases might have shown up in the.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking happened. Created the empty database. But yeah, so that should work. Once you're in the right folder, then it will connect to the correct database. That's okay. Pretty common mistake. Easy mistake to make. Okay. So we got about 30 minutes left. Let's go ahead and dive into those GET requests. If I think people are done messaging me all of these errors. I just got really popular there for a second. I apologize. Okay. Yeah, check your pip file. If it doesn't look right, delete it. That's the moral of that story. All right. So getting back to our code here, now we want to create a display for this information, right? We can write information to the database, but now how do we get that information back out? Essentially, it's in reverse order, right? So we're going to create a new app or a new route, sorry, and we're going to call this display users. Again, same thing. Now this time, I'm only going to accept the get method for this. Okay, no one should be posting anything to this endpoint, right? There's not any forms that are going to lead here, so therefore post is not a valid method on this route. Okay, that means if someone tries to attack you by posting information here, it's not going to work. All right, it'll return a 500 internal server error. Okay, and so we're going to create a function that's going to be run or executed, and we're going to call this display user, keeping the convention alive, right? And what do we want to do here? Okay, well, we're going to need to query all of our users, right? So we're going to need to create a variable that contains the information from the database query. Okay, typically this will come in the form of that same list of tuples that you saw, right? When you ran it in the REPL. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to say users equals users dot query, and remember this is the name of our table as referenced in models.py, right? It's this thing. It's not this. This is the alias that we can use to access it. This is the actual model name. And anytime that we run a DB query, we need to reference the class name, not the alias name. Okay, pretty important. If you get that crossed, it won't work. That's the first thing to check. Okay, so when we do a dot query, it's always on the actual class name, right? User in this case. So we're going to do user.query, and we just want to get them all, right? So what are we going to do? And let me just double check on my syntax here. I believe I want to ask get all. Okay, so we've got some things right. Yeah, and we want to hang on. Yeah, so it's product or user.query.all. That's the that's the thing I was looking for. All right, this is just going to basically say, give me everything. This is that select star from users, right? That's what this is doing. It's going to literally return or spit out all of the information from that table, okay? Indiscriminate. And then we could do something really simple. We're just going to return, and we're going to render a template, okay? We haven't made this template yet, but we will, okay? We're going to call this our users.html, okay? And we need to do something different, something we haven't done yet, and that is to actually define a variable that's going to be accessible on the HTML page, okay? This is going to be a variable that's given to the page, and rather more specifically, it's going to be given to Jinja. Jinja is the Python package that renders this HTML for us, okay? But we want to do Python if-else statements or something like that, or access a variable inside of the HTML page, then we need to pass it that information. So in this case, we're going to call it users equals users. Just keeping it simple. This is going to be the variable that we'll reference later in our HTML file. And this is the where the information is actually coming from. This is this variable here. That is the result of our query. Okay. So now we're passing this down. We're passing this information into this HTML file. Okay. Pretty simple, right? So we've queried all of our users, and now we want to return those. So we need to create this template, ourusers.html, that uses this user information. Okay, so we're going to do that now. Let's go ahead and save this, and now we're going to pull this up. And real quick, Andy with the save showed me something interesting here. If you're using Windows Terminal, right, command prompt, you can actually type in NUL for null, and then the little greater than sign, right? And then the file name that you want to create. So in this case, you know, we're in our app. So if we look, we have access.
Type.
What's that?
You gotta type. It's type.
What are you talking
Type
about?
null. Type null.
Oh, type null, like this?
Yeah, greater than.
Gotcha.
Space null, greater than, and then the file name, whatever type of file.
Yeah, so we want to create a new file called ourusers.html. So we're just going to create that now. Yeah, just like that. So now we have this new file, ourusers.html. And if we look at our text editor, it should have already, automatically updated when we added that. Okay, but you're going to open it in your text editor, and let's get started. Let's make a new HTML file.
You go back to routes for just a split second.
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually only added 4 lines here, so it should be pretty easy to copy. Well, what are we doing? Yeah, we're creating a new endpoint, display users. We're setting the only legitimate method here is going to be get, which is inferred, so we could technically leave this out, but again, explicit over implicit, right? We're saying this is the only method that we can use, and this is all the code that we're going to execute. Okay. All right, so let's look at this. In our users, we're gonna go ahead and create that base HTML template, right? Making life a little bit easier for ourselves. If you don't have this option, and we'll always get rid of that extra caret there, then you're just gonna do HTML and then a body tags and then close HTML. That's really all you need for a very basic HTML page, okay? But here in this body tag, that's what we're concerned about. That's what's getting rendered right in the browser page. Okay, so we're going to do something really cool here. We're going to use Jinja syntax. Okay, so if learning Python and HTML wasn't enough, now we have to learn some curly brace nonsense that kind of looks like this, right? This is Jinja. Okay, and what we can do here is we can reference that variable that we passed in, users. How do we do that? Well, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to, I like to do this in a couple of steps. First is to confirm that there's any information in that variable. So I would say if users. What does that do? That's going to proc true if users contains data, right? If it doesn't, then it will do nothing. So if users, cool. Now let's do something with it. We're going to create a for loop for user and users. Right? Looking pretty simple, right? This should be looking pretty familiar. Looks like regular Python, right? And now we can do P, right? And we can pass in user. And then we'll close that up. All right. Now we have to do 2 things. This is different than regular Python. You need to end for, so you need to end the for loop, okay? And assuming for a second, right, that users was empty and did not contain any information, we could have an auxiliary message that displays there are no users in this rather in our database. Right. So this would be like a default message that will display if users doesn't have any information in it. Okay. And then we need to close this up with end if. That is the syntax for if and for statements, right? So a for loop, you have to do for something and something, just like you would with normal Python. But then when you're done, you need to end for, right? It's going to look for this and it will complain very specifically. It'll tell you it expected end for, found something else, right? So it will tell you complain very specifically about this if you don't have it. And then same thing with if else. So all of this, you know, elif works, right? You could do elif here and do something different, and else here as well. Those all work. But at the end of it all, you need end if, right? So when you're done with your if statement, you need to include end if.
Is it like very strict, this syntax with the how much space, like tab space you're leaving when you're using
No.
this curly braces with this Django?
No, it's not. Remember, Python is particular about how many spaces or tab indentions. HTML is not. HTML couldn't care less how you do this. This is styling for you and for you only. Okay.
thank you.
What's wrong? What's wrong, C? Was it something I said?
That just baffles me. It doesn't care about indentation. How
Yeah.
dare it?
Only Python, to my knowledge, cares about indentation. Just about every other language doesn't really care.
Kind of nice.
Yeah, but I like to keep things indented, right? It just makes it easier to read. It lets me know, okay, I can tell just from looking at this that this is a result of this is nested inside of this, right? I can see the parent-child relationship very easily. So that's why I choose to do it that way. All right, so if users, then we're going to print in a loop, we're going to print all of our user data, right? And then we end that. If users doesn't return, then we'll have this otherwise, right? And in fact, I actually need to do something different here. You guys didn't catch it. If users, and then I need else here to catch this, and then end if. And so we'll save that. And now we're ready, right? If we hit this display users, it should render this template with our user data that we queried from our database, right? And hopefully it'll print them out in some legible format. Let's see if it works. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my terminal, and I'm going to cd back or up two directories from templates app to back to web app. So now I'm in my web app root directory, and I'm going to run Python run.py. Let's see if it starts. It starts, no issues. That is good. So now let me share my browser screen real quick. Okay, and we're looking at this. I'm going to refresh this screen. Rather, I need it to not do that. There we go. Okay, so here we're on the index page, but I don't want to add a user, right? I want to view the users that we already have. So I'm going to type in display users. And I get user 1, user 2, user 3, and user 4. Awesome. Anyone want to take a stab at why it looks like this? Oh, I was not sure
Is
what
that
to
like an object form rather than the actual parameters?
Correct. So it didn't unpack anything for us. It just said, okay, here's user 1. I got user 1, user 2, user 3, and user 4. All right, there you go. There they all are. So I need to specify, right? I've got to do some work here to get this into some readable format. And let me go ahead and close that down real quick. All right, so what do I need to do? I need to come back here, and I need to do some work. I need to change this a little bit. So I got for user and users. Maybe I need to change this. Maybe I can reference it by some key, maybe user and then name. If I pull that name field out, maybe I'll just get that. So let's try that out. Let's just see if it works, right? I have no idea. Let's see if that's going to do anything. So it should say detected a change, but it didn't because I only changed an HTML file. So I need to turn it off and turn it back on. There we go. And I'm going to get good at this I'm doing it enough. Now we're back on this. I need to go back to the original page. And all right, I can see that I'm getting a 200. So I know things are reset. There we go. Look at that. So I can reference it by the key, right? I can see the name field. I can get the name field out. So using that logic, right? Now we can sort of start to expand on this logic, right? So I know that I can reference it by key, just like this. So what if I did, right, P user occupation, right? This should work as well. And now on the next line down, I should get that. And then P user city, right? That's the other thing. Gonna see what's happening here. What am I doing? I'm referencing, let me tie all this back together here. I'm referencing models.py. I'm referencing these columns, right? Because what this has done, this query here has given me a dictionary essentially of all the users, and each user is a dictionary, right? And it has keys and values. And for key name, it's the value John, Jacob, and Mary Poppins. And for city, it's going to be whatever the city is. And for occupation, whatever the occupation was, right? For each user. So you're getting this dictionary type key value store back that you can access using some very simple Python syntax, right? And what do? We just referenced in bracket notation the string that is the key for the value that we want, right? So user.name evaluates to John Jacob, and user.occupation will evaluate to whatever his occupation was, right? So let's save this. And in fact, now I'm gonna do a little bit of a styling. I'm gonna put a line break in here that should theoretically put a bigger separation between all of these outputs, right? So I'm gonna save that. Come back over here. It's not going to automatically refresh because none of our Python files changed. So I need to shut it down and start it back up. No errors. Looks good. Let me change screens again. And if I refresh, there we go. So now I get John Jacob Gigolo from New York 3 times, right? Because he's in there 3 times. And Mary Poppins, the nanny from Baltimore. Pretty cool, right? So really from this point, we could just keep iterating, keep expanding on this. We could effectively get it to display any information that we wanted from our database. But does everyone understand kind of what's happening here? Is there any question about how this works?
I'm getting errors.
All right. Well, we got, it's 7:48, so perfect time to start troubleshooting errors. Do you want to share your screen? And we can take it from there.
Yeah. This one?
Okay. So where are you seeing the error? Okay, it's saying users is not defined. So users equals users.queryAll, and we see that it's referencing, this is important, it's referencing an uppercase U. So go to your, go back to your VS Code. Okay, and we want to check our model. We know that uppercase U is our model users, right? We want to make sure that that's the right name for it. So come down here to your models.py. Click on that. Yeah, look at that. We added an S, but user doesn't have an S on the end of it, right? We're referencing this name, not this one. This is an alias. We don't care about that when we're doing our query, okay? We only care about this name. So if you go back to your routes.py, and yep, I would delete that S right there at the end.
Little baby errors.
Yep, that's it. Those S's, uppercase and lowercase, that'll get you, man. You got attention to detail, 100%. So we're getting a different issue here. It's saying,
I just saved it after that.
What's that?
I just saved it after that, and then it kicked me out. I was working on this.
Okay, yeah. All right, so work on that then. But yeah, no, that that should be that, right? So you got your information there. I'm concerned about what's going on here.
I didn't have it spelled right, I don't think.
Go back to your routes. That's in your routes. Yeah, it looks like it's right now. Oh, right here. Here's the issue. You need to put that on a new line. You need to break that off.
Not sure how that happened.
I am not sure either, but that needs to, it looks like all of this is gone from here. You need to finish that up. So that needs to be occupation. And then you need to have the db.session.commit or db.session.add new user and db.session.commit. You're missing all of that there. That's supposed to be here. And then this needs to come back.
Okay, so it's occupation, close parentheses?
Yeah, and then you're going to close that up there. That's going to be, yeah, that's it. And then db dot, so you're going to come down to, no, you're done. You're just instantiate the class there. And then you come down on a new line. And you're going to do db dot session. Yep, dot add. Right. And then in parentheses, the new user that we just created.
Okay, all that's down on line 36.
Yeah, all of
I know
this.
I know what happened.
How did that happen? Oh, yeah, so you're going to move that up. You're going to move that up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not a big deal. And then just fix your tab indentation. This needs, or rather this right here needs to come all the way back, or else it's going to complain at you. And you've got an extra parenthesis here. I'm not sure what that's doing.
It's because I copied from above.
Okay. Yeah, and then move that up and you should be good. Okay. Anybody else have any questions about what we're doing here?
Do you need the underscore, what is it, name underscore in the models or any of your classes? Because I didn't implement that and mine works fine. I don't know if that's like good habits.
Are you talking about yeah, are you talking about in your Flask app?
Jacob, can you go to models? I mean, not table name. Is that necessary to have, or is that just something good to have?
No, you don't need it. But instead of users, if this is your, all right, so if you don't include table name, okay, this alias here, and your class name is user, then it's going to be, this is the table name, user, lowercase user, okay? So if you actually were to go and look at the table name inside the database, it would be USER, all lowercase. Because it's just converting that to lowercase, okay?
I see.
So here, all I've done here is I've got a class name user, but I aliased it so the table name is actually users, right?
So you list all the table names, it would just list users. That's all that really does.
That's all that does.
Users lowercase.
Mm-hmm. So if you were to work with it in SQL, you would have to refer to it as users. But when we talk about in Python, we refer to it by its class name.
I see.
Okay. So this might be a little confusing, and if you want, you can eliminate this. It's not a requirement.
I understand. I see how they can be useful. So you can prevent capitalization errors and stuff like that.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm referring to it. This is the SQL name. This is the Python name.
Yeah, that makes more sense. And also, when we're doing, what's it called? The Django? What is it called?
Yeah, Django. It's Django.
Why is in our for loop, why is the output in double braces rather than one?
Okay, hang on. Yeah, you're talking about Jinja. I'm sorry. Django is a framework, not unlike Flask, but a little bit more strict. So go to our user there. Which is actually our user L for you. You might want to check that name. Yeah, so you need the double brace. Why do you need the double brace? Well, that's because Jinja refers to output. So you have if, else, for keyword statements have this, or rather when you're referring to a function, then you need to do curly brace percent sign, okay? So if I were to do any keyword like this, then I need to use this notation, okay? Anything else that needs to be included, right? So if I'm referring to something like a variable name or a user-defined function, then I'm going to use this notation, right? So for instance, if I wanted to create a URL link and I used URL4 from Flask, that's a user-defined function. So I'm going to use the double curly brace, right? So I would do like an ahref equals and then double curly brace URL4 and then follow through with that, like, static and then the file name. Okay, that's just an example, and it definitely we'll cover that tomorrow, right? Making hyperlinks and creating links using URL4. That's advanced. Okay, so we'll cover that tomorrow. But yeah, curly braces for variables and user-defined functions. Curly brace percent sign for keywords like if or for. Okay.
Yeah, I understand.
Great question. That should kind of narrow down, if you're unsure of what you should be using, ask yourself, is it a keyword? If the answer is no, it should be double curly braces. Cool. Any other questions about what we covered tonight? Is everyone feeling pretty good about this?
Yeah, I would say so.
Was everyone able to follow along and get their app to do the same things that mine was doing at the end?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mostly.
Mostly?
Mostly.
Do you have any blockers right now? Anything that's are you encountering any errors?
Well, yeah, but I don't want to take up anyone's time. I think I can probably figure it out.
Okay. Well, if you try 3 things and you can't figure it out, shoot me a DM and I will respond to you as quickly as I can. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Awesome, guys. Well, you guys have been great. I really appreciate it. I know it's kind of I've spent 4 hours talking about this, right? He tried to pack all this into 2 hours. That's not going to happen, right? It's just too much content to be able to do reasonably at that kind of pace. So I will pretty much be doing this all week to make sure that, we have everything that we need for you guys to be able to pass the sprint challenge and be effective at building Flask applications. Okay. Right
We'll
on.
get to it.
What's
That's
that?
all the material for the sprint challenge? That's what you said?
No.
Okay, good.
No. We're going to be covering some more. This is only day 1 material.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, what?
No, this is day 1 material. We've created a skeleton framework, right, for a Flask app at this point.
Do we have to? You think we have to make an app for our sprint challenge?
Yeah, you will. You'll be creating a Flask application that needs to run.
Awesome.
Part of your stretch goal will be deploying it to Heroku.
For 3 hours?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Super fun.
So that's why I'm like, if you got to have this part down pat, right? If you want to try to hit that stretch of getting it deployed, right? 'Cause that's a whole separate set of errors coming your way, real fast, quick, and in a hurry, right? So you're going to spend most of your time debugging that. So hopefully, if all goes well, you'll be able to spend minimal amount of time actually building the Flask app. Spend the rest of the time deploying it. Okay. But yeah, we'll walk through this whole process. And again, don't feel like you're cheating if you use a template. That's acceptable, right? But you need to build the template from scratch. All the code that I've given you is all the code I'm going to give you, right? From this point, you're going to need to be able to flesh out the rest by hand. And we'll walk through that step by step, but no more code giveaways, right? That template is essentially all I can really give you.
Brandon, could you send the final zip file in?
Yeah.
Chat?
Yeah, I'll send that here in just a little bit. Any other questions? All right, so we're feeling pretty good about, you can tell the difference between a GET and a POST request, right? Those methods. And if asked, you could write information to a database and extract information back out and display it on a HTML page, right? None of this has to be pretty. It just has to work, right? At the end of the day, he covered some other things too. So view function did not return a valid response. You didn't hit a return. That's the problem there. So somewhere in your code, it executed, but it did not execute a return statement. All right. But yeah, you should be able to write information to a database and extract that back out. It doesn't need to be pretty. Oh yeah, now I'll call back up to where I was. He covered some cool stuff like JSON, JSONify, right? At the end of the day, that's just a different type of request, make response rather, right? So you could return the JSON version of those dictionaries, right? So essentially all you would do is import JSONify and then return JSONify users, right? And that would then return the JSON format. That's important to understand because if you're working with, a cross-functional team and they have JavaScript for their backend, in order to couple, right, or in order to get your app to talk to their app, you're going to need to send them JSON data, right? They don't parse Python dictionaries. They only parse JSON. So it'll be up to you to JSONify your output to make sure that when they hit your endpoints, they get JSON as a return. Okay. But again, we'll have time to cover all that. I consider that to be auxiliary knowledge to getting the app working. Okay. So cool. You guys have successfully built a web application. All that would remain to be done is to deploy it. And in its current state, that would actually be pretty simple. There's not a whole lot of moving parts yet. So it would be a fairly easy matter. But yeah, so moving into tomorrow, you guys should be ready with this framework to build upon what we've got so far and start interacting with an API, right? But you'll need to take the API data and plug it into your database, and then again, reverse that process and display it on a page. So it's 8:02, guys. I appreciate it. You guys, y'all have been awesome. Again, if you're running into issues, try 3 things, doesn't work, send me a message, and I will see what I can do to help. Okay. No one else has anything else? I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
You got it.